Welcome to the Maritime Effect, a conversation series about the roles that the maritime sector plays in the regional economy and development of the Caribbean. Today's guest is Rear Admiral Peter Brady, Director General of the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. He served as Chief of Defense Staff in the Jamaica Defense Force and is a graduate of the Royal Naval Staff College in London. Admiral, thank you so much for being here to kick off this important series.
Thank you for having me. It's indeed a great honor to have this position at the beginning of your series.
The honor is ours indeed. So we'll get into it. You said that shipping is 90% of everything. And with supply chain issues dominating the news, shipping has gained an awareness among the public perhaps like never before. So where does the Caribbean fit into all of this? And why is the region important to the global maritime industry?
You know, Geneive, if one takes a bird's eye view of the Caribbean basin, that is to say, from say 50 miles above the surface of the earth, it's amazing at the amount of traffic that passes through this Caribbean Sea, going in all directions, coming through the very strategic Panama Canal, bringing trade from all parts of Asia, sometimes the west coast of America, through the Caribbean to the eastern seaboard of America, and to see the trade that also originates in the Caribbean, sometimes bringing oil, very valuable oil, something very topical these days with what's happening in Europe right now. It emphasizes the importance of the Caribbean for the trade that it brings. But also the Caribbean itself is an attractive place. The Caribbean has something like 60% of the global cruise market. And that says a lot for what we provide here in the Caribbean with this great resource, the Caribbean Sea, because it's the sea that attracts and supports the lives and livelihoods of many, many Caribbean people, but also provides this conduit for trade, which is so important for the world. And you mentioned that a lot of people now are becoming sensitive and conscious of the importance of trade by sea. Yes, the global pandemic has done that to us. And it is not the kind of way we would have liked to have been recognized for our importance. But needless to say, it has brought home to people how important shipping is to our lives. And so from that perspective, I think the Caribbean Sea is therefore an important hub, if you may, for global trade, travel, leisure. And also we should not forget that there is some exploration and exploitation that takes place in the Caribbean Sea. And the important part about this point is that while that is happening, we must do so in a very responsible way by protecting the marine environment.
You intimated the importance of education in your answer to the question of why is the Caribbean important? And I just wondered what your thoughts might be about building a cadre of seafarers and maritime professionals in the sector to work on the ships that are coming through our area.
Well, thanks very much for that question. We have demonstrated in the Caribbean that we produce excellent seafarers at all levels who work the ships, not only who navigate the ships, but the people who provide for the propulsion, the engineering side of it. And we're very, very happy to say that we have in Jamaica a regional maritime training university, which puts out excellent seafarers. And I will tell you this, the demand for these seafarers these days is just too high. We can't cope. We're not turning out enough now of seafarers to satisfy the global market. You know, there is a need now globally for around 300,000 seafarers, and we're not filling that need sufficiently. And the Caribbean now is now understanding that need and they are now increasing the throughput of people at the universities for maritime education and training.
Just the sheer number of ships that are navigating our seas seem to suggest a huge demand. But as you also said, there are not enough graduates in this space. Is it a shortage of capacity? Is it a lack of interest? Combination of both? And what plans do you understand are afoot to kind of help to close that gap?
Okay, you're correct. It's a combination of those factors. And we have identified where we need to increase our intakes into the various maritime training institutions. And what is very important is that not many of the potential candidates have the wherewithal to actually provide for the tuition. So that's an area that we want to emphasize some more. And your organization, your foundation actually is one of the most important entities in this region that assists youngsters in the Caribbean to do this training by providing fellowships for them. And we're very proud of the association with the ACMF in that regard. And I should add too that you don't discriminate whom you award the fellowships to. It's both men and women who are equally getting this opportunity. That's something I think we're very proud of too.
I appreciate your emphasis on that, because the fact of the matter is, Admiral, the maritime industry is still very much a male-dominated sector. So we have to really make special effort to ensure that gender equity in the space, and more women are coming in to the field. How are the training institutions that we talked about in the region addressing that gender inequity, actually?
Okay, well, I believe, that the training institutions in the Caribbean area have representation at the International Maritime Organization, which, as you know, is a UN body that governs the safety, security, and pollution prevention of shipping, the training and certification of people. And the IMO, as a UN body, has a central role to provide for equal opportunities at sea. And the IMO, for instance, this year the IMO has set aside a particular day of the year to be called International Maritime Women's Day on the 18th of May. And they have sponsored and support several women in maritime associations around the world. One of them is Women in Maritime Association Caribbean, which I think you know about. And it is a very active association, and they are using up all the opportunities that are afforded for them with this kind of recognition and sponsorship. So I'll tell you, we're very proud, Geneive, very, very proud of the women in the Caribbean now looking at these opportunities that are being afforded them. They're taking it up, and you know what? They are out competing the men in many areas.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what I'm seeing as well. Let's shift a little bit from education and training to infrastructure, big infrastructure, such as a logistics hub that could pull all of what we have already discussed together. There has been talk in Jamaica that such a facility is critical to the industry, not only for the maritime space, but for overall economic development of the region. Where does that stand? Is that still a dream of ours, or plans still afoot to get that done?
No, I'll tell you, the government of Jamaica has targeted logistics as a very important part of our economic development. One of the main reasons for this is our strategic location here in Jamaica. And the government, therefore, has put a lot of incentives in place through what is called the Global Logistic Initiative, which is part of our 2030 development plan, incidentally. And they have offered a number of incentives to various investors to come in and take advantage of the opportunities of this global logistics hub. And they have created an actual strategic zone for the logistics hub to operate in. And we're beginning to see some big uptakes in this area now in Jamaica. And of course, that not only provides for good trade and solid trade in and out of Jamaica, bringing in stuff, assembling, sending out, but also jobs. And that's a major factor in this global logistics inequity.
So moving on now to a phrase that is used a lot. Our listeners probably would benefit from hearing you define what is the blue economy. Of course, we are a region that is all about the environment, the sun, the sand, the sea. Exactly what is the blue economy, and does the Caribbean have a unique or special role to play in this emerging trend?
Absolutely. And I'm very happy you asked that question about the blue economy, because really it is the economy that has its life around the maritime environment, the marine environment, so to speak. But the difference with the blue and just an ordinary economy is that every activity that takes place within this zone, this blue area, so to speak, has to be sustainable. And this is the difference between just the economy where extraction takes place without any thought at all going into the sustainable use of whatever is being extracted. So we have, for instance, in the Caribbean, we have the trade winds which blow almost all year. And for instance, the generation of wind energy is one of these parts of the blue economy that we are going to capitalize on. And we're getting a lot of interest now from very, very large companies to look at offshore wind generation as a new type of industry, so to speak. That in itself now it's going to create a lot of jobs because they have to be serviced. These windmills will have to be serviced. We have to make sure that they are also operating in zones of the sea which will not obstruct shipping traffic, which is very, very important. But the industry that it creates in itself will call for a new type of education and training. And this is where, again, the maritime institutions can offer this I call them allied training to what they normally do, and provide opportunities for people to work in industry. So the blue economy, therefore, is essentially extracting from the ocean anything that can create an economic livelihood, but with the hope of the far sight of our children and grandchildren, 20 years' time, to be able to do it similarly without any denudation at all or degradation of the very factors, the very things that produce this blue economy. And it also extends even to areas like pharmaceuticals. The sea has lots of treasures, as our mothers and grandmothers will tell us. And the amazing amount of medicine that we can extract from marine pharmaceuticals, it's not even known yet. The seabed contains treasures that we haven't even begun to discover yet.
Talk to us about the International Seabed Authority, which you mentioned is headquartered in Jamaica, but it is not a Caribbean body. It is an international body responsible for regulation of the global maritime space. Could you tell us a little bit more about that organization?
Yes, in fact, I'm very, very proud to talk about it because you may go back to February 1982. That was when the International Convention on the Law of the Sea, commonly called UNCLOS, Law of the Sea, was signed in Jamaica, in Montego Bay. They actually call it the Montego Bay Convention. And that put together international law for governing mankind's most treasured sort of secret, if you may, the sea, because it also looked beyond national jurisdiction. It clearly defined the rules for navigation, freedom of navigation. It clearly defined the rules for how one can demark their space, their sea space, their ocean space. And it clearly defined the rules also of how we can share the resources of the sea in one area of a country with another area that might not be advantaged, if you may, as another. It looked into all these things. And one of the things that it looked at was the area beyond national jurisdiction, which is called the common, the area or the area. And that in itself led to the development of a set of rules for governing the use of this area, which is beyond the jurisdiction of mankind, so to speak, so that it becomes what is called our common heritage. And that is how the Seabed Authority itself was born, in order to regulate the uses of the areas beyond national jurisdiction. And it's salutary, the work that they're doing now.
How is their remit different from the remit of the IMO?
Well, because the IMO really regulates the transportation itself, the shipping. IMO regulates shipping to ensure that they operate safely, securely, with a strong eye on marine environmental protection, and also the competency of the people who operate those ships. So that's basically what the IMO does. The seabed looks simply at natural resources beyond the national jurisdictions to ensure that they are properly exploited and extracted, again, with due regard to environmental factors, and also to determine that that area beyond national jurisdiction actually belongs to all of us. And therefore, what they do is they allocate special areas in the seabed beyond national jurisdiction to countries that are able to do that extraction. And they have to follow those rules.
Incredible. We have within the Caribbean, of course, the CARICOM, which is an abbreviated phrase for the Caribbean Community, which is essentially a regional trading bloc equal to what many might know, or similar to what many might know as the European Union. Is the maritime sector a key component driving the 2030 goals? And what are some of the specific areas of focus or priority for the CARICOM?
Okay, in the Caribbean, we have an association of maritime administrations. Jamaica has the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. Trinidad has the Maritime Safety Division, and so on. And under the sponsorship of the IMO, we meet at least once a year, the senior maritime administrators of the Caribbean. We meet at least once a year to look at how we can cooperate through this regional cooperation program that's assisted by the International Maritime Organization Integrated Technical Cooperation Program. So we meet and see how we can share ideas. We also have two other bodies that are very active and operate within the rubric, if you may, of CARICOM. And that is the Caribbean MOU on port state control. Port state control simply is the ability, or the authority of individual states to inspect vessels that call at their ports with trade, foreign flag vessels, to ensure that those vessels are in fact in compliance with all of the international rules for safety and so on. And through that, we ensure that our Caribbean waters are therefore kept fairly pristine, because we try to keep out substandard ships by having this particular mechanism in place called the Caribbean MOU on port state control. And incidentally, the Secretariat is located right here in my office in Kingston. The Secretary General, Jamaica hosts that Caribbean MOU on port state control. So that's one very, very important body that helps to keep the marine environment safe, clean, and so on. The other one, of course, is the Women in Maritime Association Caribbean, which is a fairly new cooperative body among the women in the maritime administrations. And we make sure that they are treated with the utmost equity in all respects. And listen to me, many of these women are leading people in their marine administrations in the Caribbean. And we're very proud of that. We're very, very proud of our Caribbean women. Many of them trained right here at the Caribbean Maritime University.
Absolutely. Big up for the Caribbean Maritime University. Well, let me tell you, this is dear to my heart. You referenced the foundation. I founded and headed the American Caribbean Maritime University, or rather foundation. And we are very, very proud of the work we do. We're very proud of you as well, Admiral Brady, for the leadership that you have brought not only to Jamaica and to the Caribbean, but to the globe in the area that in the maritime industry. So thank you so very much for letting us, bringing us into your world. And it is clear that the Caribbean is safe environmentally and still available as a magnificent draw for tourism, for shipping of all kinds. Thank you so much for joining me today. God bless you.
It's my pleasure. Godspeed.